Hello, Montreal, and welcome to Rising Stars, where we showcase local Montreal talent on the rise. Today I am excited to be joined by a local actor, Mr. Marius Zamfir. Marius, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
This is our first time meeting.
Absolutely.
I'm especially intrigued to know how you got into acting. What made you want to become an actor? Because I've never worked with you before, and I'm just really curious.
Well, that's a story in itself.
Beautiful.
Starts off with some bad news, then some good news, and then it gets into a little bit better.
Perfect.
But so I started actually Concordia University in 2015
Okay.
as a business student.
Okay.
I failed out my first year. I think I redid economics like 3 times, and I was miserable. I was unhappy. I didn't really get along with my peers. I didn't get along with the professors. The material, it looked like a different language. I couldn't understand any of it at all, and it wasn't working out. So I think it was a little bit of a shock and a wake-up call when I got kicked out. I received a letter from Concordia.
Oh, wow.
You have been kicked out of university. Please reapply. I'm like, well, first year, things are already not going too well at all.
Exactly.
And I think I ended up getting back into the university. So I'm very thankful and grateful for that. But my second year, I started taking more courses that I found that interested me instead of kind of what I'm supposed to do, how to make money in life, how to survive.
Yeah.
And I stumbled upon an acting course. It was just an elective. They hosted it in the chapel down by Loyola campus.
Okay.
Best experience of my life.
Wow.
It would blew my mind. I was like, how have I never found this hidden little gem before? It changed my life. I was a happier person. I was a more authentic person. I felt closer to myself. And I started to do better. My grades improved, my happiness improved, my social life improved. Overall, I felt like a different person.
Yeah.
And I never looked back.
Wow.
I just kept going. And
Wow.
I was addicted to it, I was like,
Yeah.
more acting courses, more stuff.
Yeah.
So in the end, I actually ended up getting a minor in theater.
Nice.
So I actually just graduated Concordia a week ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
That's
Thank you.
amazing. Congratulations. It's funny because we have a very similar beginning because I graduated from CEGEP with business, and similar to you, I started taking courses at Concordia geared more towards that. And like you, I was fairly miserable. And as I was failing out of my classes, I found acting. Yeah. So it's amazing how we had the same kind of beginning. Yeah. Take me to that first class of the elective. What was going through your mind? Were there any doubts? What am I doing here? Or was it just right away you felt connected to the class?
Well, a little bit of a rough start. I think you get into a room and then everyone's kind of wearing sweatpants and stuff, and everyone's loose, and you're kind of like, okay, kind of play with the space, And then you have the professor there, like, everybody, go ahead and just make animal noises. You're a tiger in the jungle, you're an elephant, and everyone's, making all these noises we're in the jungle. And I find it was so intimidating at first because you really have to let yourself go.
Of course.
And I'm like, no, I'm a strong man, I don't play children's games, I have to look good at all times.
Yeah.
And I was like, no. And I think that initial shock started to wear off, and as we got into more exercises, I think at first I was a bit angry about it. I was like, what am I paying for the kindergarten? And then I think that as it went through, I was like, it suddenly clicked. It's about breaking down these barriers, breaking down what your mind tells you, what you can and can't do, what is acceptable in the world and what is unacceptable. And I kind of, at some point, we were running an exercise where we had to do a monologue, and it just clicked. It was like, that's what we've been gearing towards. To be able to understand yourself better.
Yeah.
Unabashedly, and not be ashamed of who you are, what we are as humans.
Yeah.
So,
wow, that's beautiful.
That's fun stuff.
That's beautiful. And because you're fairly new to the acting game, I remember when I was just starting out, I wanted to learn as much as possible, as quickly as possible. So any book I could get my hands on, any course I could watch on YouTube, any class I could take in Montreal, I was doing it.
Yeah.
Tell us about what you're doing now to learn as much as possible in acting. Is it books, courses? Just let us know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Currently, recently I got into the more stunt side of work.
Oh.
And I was really fascinated by it. And, I ended up meeting a guy that I usually I think Facebook, social media is so important
It is.
Today. And I never thought I would kind of rely on it a bit for acting, either jobs, work. but also networking, speaking with other people,
Yeah.
making new friends, acquaintances, stuff like that. And so this guy's like, hey, let's go out and just shoot some films. I want to do stunts. So we ended up doing that, and so actually currently I'm taking a course for like stage combat and stuff like that with the Sean Beichu, who's fantastic. Highly recommend this guy. Really wonderful, kind, easygoing, works with you, and just it's fantastic. It's really cathartic. You get the exercise out of it, and you're also working on multiple skills. So I have a couple projects coming up that are all like films related to this more stunt side as opposed to the acting side, and I'm trying to blend the two of them together.
Of course.
To come forward.
Of course.
But in terms of for courses, that's kind of where I'm going. I did just graduate. I was just in the Fringe Festival, so we just finished our show, our 6 shows, and like so I've been trying to migrate a little bit and just jump to the next ship, so to speak, and kind of see where that's taking off. So.
Of course. And you spoke about being in the Fringe Festival. Was that your first play? Have you done plays before?
I've done quite a few like projects, theater projects, like little stuff here and there for whatever reason. But I think this would be my first experience that would be arguably more in a professional kind of setting.
Beautiful.
Where you actually you're charging people for a ticket. You're promoting your show. There's a lot of work that goes into it behind the scenes that aren't even just. It's not just acting,
Exactly.
And so, getting a taste for that and experiencing that was a fantastic experience.
Exactly. Tell me about your preparation process for your first professional play. Tell me about what you were doing, maybe some things you picked up from other actors you were working with that really helped you once the stage lights came on and it was time to go.
Taking that time for myself, taking that 5-10 minutes to breathe, to shut off everything around me. Now that's just me personally, right?
Yeah.
That's not, maybe not everybody do that, but I think that everyone's got their kind of ritual, their little thing that they got to take care of for themselves. And I don't want to say be selfish, but be selfish. Take what you need. If you need to breathe, if you need to meditate, if you need to take care of some things on your end, if you need to get mentally prepared, do it. You will have a better outcome. There's no right way to set up for it, It's what works for you.
Of course.
So I think that, as well as you got to make those sacrifices. If you got to get up at 6:30 in the morning, you got to get up at 6:30 in the morning. If you got to get up at 3 in the morning, you got to get in that habit of making those sacrifices for the greater good, because it's going to improve your quality of life. It's going to improve your quality as an actor. It's going to improve just your availability, your readiness, your willingness to get what you want.
Of course.
So I'm not sure if that exactly answers your question.
Course. And that's actually very interesting, because I was speaking about this yesterday with my girlfriend, and we were talking about how, because I had been studying business before, the effect acting took on my personal life. Once I started acting and getting into more of a professional setting on sets, how has it affected your personal life becoming an actor? Like you said, whether it be waking up at 6:30 in the morning, has there been a schedule change? Maybe you're going to school, Concordia, and then at night, are you hustling, trying to find gigs?
I think I feel more alive. Oddly, I think it's easy to fall into a routine, and this is a line of work where there is no routine. Yeah. You're jumping at it, whatever it may be, and I think it's a little bit more chaotic, but in the most beautiful of ways. So I find that waking up every day and being excited that there's something new on the horizons, but I still have to look for it. I still have to find it. Yeah. It's not guaranteed. It's not just handed out to me, but there is something there.
Yeah.
And so you get to play the fun game of going and figuring out exactly what it is. So I think that's how it's changed a bit my outlook. I think especially after university and then working several jobs, that kind of the mundanity of just going through the same routine over and over and over again, waking up at the same time, going the same commute to work, working, coming back home, maybe watching an episode of Netflix and then going to bed.
Of course.
Repeat.
Of course.
It's soul sucking, right?
Yeah.
And then in this case, you're like, okay, I don't know if there's going to be a good tomorrow, but I will find a way to get there.
That's the exciting part about it.
Exactly. So I feel like a lot more energized.
Alive.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. And that actually leads me to my next question. on this acting journey, up until now, what has been the biggest lesson you've taken away from it? Because for me, up until now, it's been to be more open and receptive to everybody around me. Whereas before, I regret saying this, but I was judgmental of other people. I did not understand why certain people would act the way they did. But acting really taught me to be more open. What's kind of a lesson you've learned that has had an impact on you?
Humility.
Humility.
You have to have humility.
Yeah.
You cannot walk in the room strutting your shoulders, being like, I'm the best, the greatest thing that ever happened. Any advice is good advice, take it.
Yeah.
Do what you will with it, but you'd be a fool not to listen to your peers, no matter where they're at, you know.
Yeah.
Everyone sees the world differently, and I think having that, biting that bullet, having that in your heart to be able to accept that you are not the greatest,
Yeah.
you are not the worst either, it doesn't mean the opposite is true, but being able to truly listen to your directors, listen to your colleagues, listen to your professors, listen to anyone, and take that advice to heart. Don't just brush things off as, yeah, sure.
Exactly.
It's not going to get you anywhere.
Exactly.
You learn that slowly and slowly, so I wish I would have told myself that maybe when I was younger, but everything for its own reason, right?
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And kind of heading into that, where do you see your career going from now? Because as you said, you just graduated Concordia with a minor in theater. Now that you're out of Concordia, what are in the plans for Marius? Where do you see yourself going from here?
That's a really good question. You know, the biggest, I think the goal for a lot of actors is really, we're art aside and our own personal idea of what we want to create, there is the reality of you need to get carded. You need your actor credits,
yes,
and you need your UDA credits.
Yes.
So I think that's the overarching goal, so to speak, would be to kind of head towards that direction. But for me, that just really means being open to any possibility, taking as many projects. Like I'm at a moment where right now I'm maybe taking off a little bit more than I can shoot.
Yeah.
Where I'm, you know, someone said, hey, we have this project going on, you want it? Yes.
Yeah.
Always just, you never say no, yes, and then if I have to suffer for it, I will deal with it later.
Exactly.
I will take it now. So I think broadening those horizons, working on other skill sets too. I never thought that, for example, like the past example with like stunt work or combat, these kind of things are like relevant. I'm like, oh, you'll learn it on the job eventually, you know, you'll get some training for it. But it's like, no, like if you can impress a stunt coordinator, if you can kind of work on these things now, you become more valuable as a person. Actors, although we are a small community in Montreal, we also are a dime a dozen.
We are.
You know, everyone you know, everyone's an actor, right?
Yeah.
But you know, we're not like the only person who's charismatic or who has some good looks or some innate talent. There's people who've worked a lot harder for it than you have. So how do you stay competitive? You dig your feet in the soil, you get your hands dirty, and you do everything you can to give yourself that competitive edge.
Exactly.
So I think that's kind of the plan going forward, is keeping that, being like a sponge, absorbing everything, taking everything in around me.
Exactly.
Not saying no to new opportunity.
Exactly.
When someone says, you want to do tap dancing? I'm like, well, I've never done tap dancing, but why not?
Why not learn? It's really about getting as many tools in your toolbox so that when you get on set and you're asked, you're like, yeah, I could do that. Of course. You brought up stunts. Is there any other courses or trainings you would like to take? Because I remember when I was starting, I had found an improv class and I go, wow, I've never done that, but that would interest me. And it helped me grow exponentially. Are there any courses you see? Maybe it'd be breath work, dancing?
Mask work.
Mask work.
Mask work would be fascinating, you know. I think I was recommended to take a course. I looked into it and I found it absolutely fascinating. A little bit creepy. The masks were a little bit odd, so I was a little bit like turned off from the concept of like, oh my God, this is weird.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, it's like, this looks fascinating. I think it's going to really help solidify a character, an idea, a concept, and really kind of put it to the test when you're putting so much effort into kind of one thing, so to speak.
Of course.
So I think mask work would be fascinating. Dance would be good for the cardio. You know, I think it's important to stay in good shape and to, you know, also have other outlets that are not just, you know, in front of a camera or on stage, that also allow you to perform better, but get in touch with like your body. You know, I remember at Concordia, I took a somatics class. Best experience of my life. I actually took it with Nikisha Fleming.
Our assistant director.
Exactly.
Shout out to Nikisha.
Absolutely. And that was mind-blowing. And you know, actually the professor was a dance professor, and I never thought that those disciplines could merge together. So if I did take other things in the future, of course, I would love to do some more improv, mask work, stunt work, stuff like that, but also going more into like somatics, the yoga, more mindfulness, meditation, this kind of path too. And it kind of comes full circle and comes back around to kind of complete the other half.
Of course. And you had brought up that you didn't know that this domain could affect the acting domain.
Absolutely.
I kind of want to touch on business because you come from a business background. What are some things from...
It's arguable.
Yeah, but what are some things from business that you find have maybe translated into your acting? Because at the end of the day, it is show business. Right. So what are some disciplines you learned from that domain that you've brought into this artistic domain?
I think being professional, perhaps. I think there's a lot of people who are artists, but there's that professional aspect that they're missing. And I think that, well, I didn't exactly do well in mathematics. It's not really my strong suit, or a lot of the concepts, but something is showing up every day, putting on your best, being clean, respectful, looking people in the eyes,
of course,
good body language, these kind of things, working well with other people, working on a lot of group projects, stuff like that. So I would say that translated arguably pretty well. And I think that everyone could kind of take a page out of that, is understanding that, well, this is a profession. It's not just, it's an art. There's a lot of, absolutely, but it's a profession too.
Exactly.
And you have to stay professional within that. There's a lot of speaking with people, working with other people, people who, you know, have a lot less to lose than you do. You know?
Exactly, 100%. Now, to get on a lighter note in the interview, I want to ask you about your first influences in acting. When I was starting out, I had drawn a lot of influence from my family members, subconsciously. I didn't even realize until I got on camera and I go, oh, that's something my brother does that I see a lot of. What are some first influences you had when you first started performing?
You know, when I first started performing, I think I was a little bit more blind, so to speak, in all honesty.
Of course,
I never really thought about it. I think later on down the line, you know, that was when I was starting, that was like 2016, 2017 maybe. I didn't really think so much of it. I think I was so focused on everything else going on in my life, and I was in a way also kind of like blinded, you know, like the horse who wears the blinders so they don't get spooked.
Yeah.
And I was just focusing on like, don't screw this up, you know, get good grades, you know, get good marks, stay in school, you know, stay in Canada, you know, do good for yourself. And I think I didn't have that time to really think about it. And I think, but I know I did draw off of my own personal experiences, you know, just interactions with people. Maybe it could have been a random interaction in a coffee shop, and I was like, he just had the funniest voice. I don't know why. There was something about he was like a character, you know?
Yeah.
And then kind of like logging that in the head for later, being like, oh yeah, that was an interesting experience. I'm gonna put that in kind of in the bank, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then we'll see where that goes with. So I think being open to the world and the world's experiences and drawing in everything from that. So again, you know, sometimes maybe you're just sitting, you're having a drink with your friend, and then you hear this conversation across the table from you, and the person there's laughing like hysterically. It's like a maniacal laugh.
Yeah.
And then you're going home, you know, you say goodbye to your friends, and then you go practice that laugh like 3 or 4 times, you know, in the bathroom, you know, like, and because it stuck with you, something stuck about it. Or maybe it's a smirk, or maybe a wink, or like just a facial expression, or kind of a posture, or maybe just someone's walk, the way they're walking down the street.
Exactly.
So maybe I could argue these kind of influences, perhaps.
For sure. And that's one thing they teach
maybe
in
I'll
masks.
steal your genuine smile.
There we go, maybe. Or I could take your good looks, you know what I mean? There we go. But that's actually something they talk about in masks, where you put on the mask and you pay attention to the way somebody walks. Because normally in day-to-day life, we're looking at the person's face. We rarely see how the person walks, their posture, their cadence, for lack of a better word, of their step. So it's actually very interesting. And going off of that, I wanted to ask, what's been your process auditioning, getting ready for an audition, or if you're cast as a character, take us through that process of getting into character.
In that case, it's I think it just depends on the character and how far away from myself I feel from that character. You know, sometimes we take a character on and has a little bit more of a resemblance to what we're comfortable with some tweaks and movements here. And then there's developing a character from the ground up. I think doing a lot of like research, whatever it is, you know, so say you get like a character who's, say, more negative, or maybe not so great of a human being. And then kind of understanding where they come from. So kind of, it's almost like a retracing of steps to kind of the root. Doing that kind of research, either maybe looking up similar kind of roles, other kind of films with similar kind of roles, books, literature, interviews with these kind of people, just kind of understanding how they work.
Yeah.
What is their motivation? What do they care about? What's in it for them? How do they function in society? How would they, if they go down to the Depa now, how do they interact with the store clerk there?
Yeah.
How do they interact with their neighbor? What is it that they do in life? If they're sitting and they're having their breakfast, how do they eat their breakfast? Are they stabbing at it with a fork? Do they eat with their hands? Do they not eat breakfast? Maybe they just smoke a cigarette and have coffee. I don't know.
The Greek breakfast, as we like to say.
I was going to say this is the Romanian breakfast.
Yeah,
okay.
exactly. Yeah, that's beautiful. Has there ever been a role that's been more challenging than, let's say, others you've done in the past, where you had to kind of find resources that weren't readily available? You had to really go digging deep?
You know, I feel like with, how do I put this? That the roles that are very diverse from us as a person, I find are easier because there's such a wide range of what you can do with it. It's just your imagination, right? And the imagination of the universe. You can spin it however you want. When you find roles that are a little bit closer to yourself, or just a little bit, just have more in common, I find then you have to work harder to separate yourself from that role. You're not just walking on the screen and just being yourself. That's not what you're doing, right? So I think being able to separate that and not falling back into yourself each time and being like, wait, that's a gesture, that's what I do.
Yeah.
That's not what my character does, because you're starting to confuse it. So being able to separate those two, that's what I find hard. So, you know, if you have a character that's, you know, about the same age, same demographic, similar kind of situation in life, or even you're like, oh, I'm in this role, I'm a father now. I'm like, okay, well, yeah, but, you know, like really, when you get something a little bit closer, I'm like, I could be a father soon, who knows, right? So really separating those two things and making sure that you have that distance from yourself. You don't fall back into these similar tropes or these similar styles of yourself. You separate the two, and then also for your own personal health, you know, you don't want to mix these things kind of together. You want to keep them separate. So.
Of course, yeah. Has there ever been a moment where, it's happened to me a lot, I've been on camera and I kind of play with my hair.
Yeah.
And okay, yeah.
But I mean, that's also not bad. They're just falling.
Yeah, 100%. Okay. And we spoke about you getting into stunts.
Yeah.
In the future, is there more a leaning towards appearing in action films? Maybe you want to go into another genre, be it comedy, horror, drama?
You know, I would like to keep myself completely open. I'm doing this out of just pure interest, and I realize it's fantastic. And maybe next month I'm like, I really want to do salsa dancing, and that's my new thing. You know, that I'm just going to jump into, you know, completely blindly, and then be like, okay, now I've kind of, like we talked about, adding things to the toolkit, so to speak.
Exactly.
And obviously I'm not opposed to doing action films, but I'm also not going to go full John Wick and get thrown down a flight of stairs. That's not my interest either, right? But again, having the capability, it's like being like, I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it, so to speak.
For sure. If you had to play with two other actors or actresses in a scene, a Hollywood movie, which would they be?
These would be like Hollywood actors?
Yes.
Okay. Whew. I would love to play with Christoph Waltz.
Christoph
He
Waltz?
speaks several languages.
He does.
And he's a very enigmatic, odd character, very like just fascinating. And maybe Johnny Depp, because I'd like to go have drinks with him after.
Why not? Why not? That's awesome. That's awesome. And as a Montreal actor, you've been in the community for a while. What is one thing you feel is missing from the Montreal acting community that you would like to see more of?
I think, just from my own personal experiences, I don't want to say it's like a whole and kind of label everything, but it would be nice to see a little bit more community between the Anglophone and Francophone communities in acting. I think there's just a bit of a division there, and it's very split. I'm fortunate enough where, since I speak both languages, I get to go on both sides, but I've realized those communities are very different, and they're very split. And at the end of the day, you know, we're all one giant community. We're a small community. We do have to stick together.
Exactly.
And we're all in Montreal, and I think that it'd be really nice to just see more of that togetherness.
Exactly.
That unity, so to speak.
Exactly, 100%. And what would you like, is there certain things in film you would like to see more of, like maybe more production companies coming down and filming, maybe it'd be more theater productions being made in a certain genre?
I think film.
Film?
Absolutely more film. I
Yeah.
think that Montreal is such a diverse, wonderful community of people,
Mm.
and I think that it should be capitalized on a little bit more. There's so much here to the culture, to the people, to society, how everything works. I'm just surprised, you know, you see the same old tropes of like, you know, London, New York, Milan, Paris, over and over and over again. But then you have Montreal, which is you walk down the street and you hear somebody speaking Portuguese, then you have French, then you have Arabic, and then you have, you know, English, everything else all mixed together walking down one street. And you're like, where else do you don't find that everywhere.
Exactly.
And I think we, you know, as people who spend quite a bit of time here or grew up here, is like, we're spoiled on that. But the rest of the world isn't.
Exactly.
So for us, we're like, yeah, that's normal, that's Montreal. And then they're
Exactly.
like, oh, that's insane, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I'd like to see more of that. That would be really cool.
That's very true, and that's just popped into my head. Our next question, because we have the beautiful Mount Royal overlooking us right now.
Absolutely.
What are some Montreal landmarks you would love to see in a film? Because what comes to mind for me is Orange Julep, Big Orange, St. Joseph's Oratory at night.
That's my first one right there.
Yeah. What are some other Montreal landmarks you'd love to see on film?
I think I'm not sure if it's been done before, but the Olympic Stadium, it looks like super dystopian and crazy.
Yeah.
So maybe in like some like sci-fi apocalyptic kind of thing, you know, having this giant concrete slab that looks a little bit alien-esque to a degree that I think that maybe it could be used pretty good.
It could, yeah.
And I think I was shooting a film during COVID, and it was so weird because it was completely, all the streets were empty. We were having the time of our life. There's nobody out doing anything except us.
Yeah.
But it was creepy. And I remember at one point, you know, I was just like looking up, and then you look all the way down the street, and then you go ahead and you see this giant alien-looking slab from what, 1971, 1972 Olympics, and you're like, that's cool. That could totally be used.
Exactly, 100%.
Absolutely, the oratory, the Saint Joseph Oratory out there is fantastic, beautiful, you know, so I think like...
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Now to end our interview, you were speaking about how you had current projects on the horizon. Is there anything you want to give a shout out to, anything we should be looking out for heading forward?
A little bit under wraps, still a couple
For
projects
sure.
and film projects that I'm
For
working
sure.
on, some divided between acting work, some divided between stunt work, these kind of things. More info soon.
For sure, that's awesome. I appreciate it. And Marius, thank you so much for coming. It was a real pleasure meeting you.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
And I look forward to seeing your work in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thank you.